And I'm Scarlett, 32 years old, and I had it all. A dream job in marketing, a gorgeous millionaire fiancé, and what I thought was an unbreakable bond with my sister Madeline. Until she betrayed me in the worst possible way. She stole Jackson, flaunted their perfect life for 10 years, and cruelly mocked my single status at our parents' anniversary. But sometimes the universe has a way of balancing the scales when you least expect it. Before I start my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how karma finally caught up to my sister in ways neither of us could have imagined. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, I always worked hard for everything I had. By 22, I'd graduated with honors and landed an entry-level position at a prestigious marketing firm in New York City. Through countless late nights and sacrificed weekends, I climbed the corporate ladder until I became an executive by 27. My life changed forever on a crisp October evening at the annual Children's Hospital Charity Gala. Wearing a navy blue gown I'd saved 3 months to afford, I was representing our firm, when I literally bumped into Jackson Montgomery spilling champagne on his custom tuxedo. "I'm so sorry," I gasped mortified as I dabbed at his jacket with a cocktail napkin. Jackson just laughed, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners. "Don't worry about it. This gives me the perfect excuse to talk to the most beautiful woman in the room." Jackson wasn't just charming, he was brilliant. At 32, he'd built a tech empire from a startup in his garage to a company valued at over $200 million. Despite his wealth, he carried himself with an unpretentious confidence that drew me in immediately. We talked until the venue staff began stacking chairs. He asked for my number, and by the next morning, an enormous arrangement of white roses arrived at my office, with a note asking me to dinner. Our connection was immediate and intense. Jackson listened when I spoke, valued my opinions, and treated me like an equal. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. He introduced me to a world of luxury I'd never known, private jets to weekend getaways, front row seats at Fashion Week dinners, at restaurants with month-long waiting lists. "You're not impressed by any of this, are you?" he asked one night as we rode in his chauffeur-driven Bentley. "By you, yes. By the stuff, it's nice, but it's just stuff," I replied honestly. He kissed me then, whispering, "That's exactly why I love you." After a year of dating, Jackson flew me to Malibu for what he claimed was a business trip. He took me to a secluded beach at sunset, where a path of rose petals led to a small table set for two on the sand. After a private chef served dinner, Jackson dropped to one knee and opened a velvet box containing a flawless 5-carat diamond ring. "Scarlett, you're the only person I've ever met who sees me not my bank account. Will you marry me?" Tears streaming down my face, I said yes. The ring was stunning, but it was what it represented that mattered. A future with a man who valued me for exactly who I was. We set the date for June 15th at the Montgomery estate in the Hamptons. I dove into planning, determined to create a day that reflected our love story, rather than just an ostentatious display of wealth. Throughout this whirlwind romance, my younger sister Madeline had been struggling. 3 years my junior, she'd moved to New York with dreams of becoming a fashion designer, but was barely making rent working retail at a boutique in Soho. I'd always been protective of Madeline. When our parents divorced during her freshman year of high school, I became her rock, helping her navigate the emotional fallout. "You're going to be my maid of honor, of course," I told her, over brunch, sliding an engraved invitation across the table. Her eyes filled with tears. "I can't afford a designer dress, Scar. Everything about your wedding is so high-end." "Jackson and I will cover it," I assured her, "and he's mentioned he might have some contacts in the fashion industry who could look at your portfolio." Madeline hugged me tightly. "You're the best sister anyone could ask for." In those early days of engagement bliss, I missed the signs. How Madeline's eyes lingered on Jackson a beat too long. How she began dressing differently when she knew he'd be around. How she suddenly developed interests in tech entrepreneurship and began asking him detailed questions about his business. I was too busy planning our future, the Tudor-style mansion we'd purchased in Connecticut, our honeymoon plans for a month-long tour of the Mediterranean, and discussions about starting a family within the next 2 years. Jackson and I even talked about me potentially stepping back from my executive role to launch my own marketing consultancy with his financial backing. "I want you to have everything, Scarlett, mate," he would say, holding me close. "You deserve the world." I believed him completely. I believed in us, which made what happened next all the more devastating. 3 months before our wedding, my workload at Fleming and Partners Marketing exploded when we landed the biggest account in the firm's history. 14-hour days became my norm as I led the team developing a global campaign for a luxury automotive brand. "I hardly see you anymore," Jackson complained one evening when I cancelled our dinner plans to finish a presentation. "It's just until the campaign launches," I promised. Then everything goes back to normal. During this hectic period, Jackson mentioned that he'd been helping Madeline develop a business plan for her fashion line. I was touched by his generosity and relieved that someone was supporting her dreams while I was temporarily unavailable. "She's really talented, Scarlett," he said. "With the right backing and mentorship, she could make it." "Thank you for doing that," I replied, kissing him gratefully. "She's always struggled with confidence. Having someone believe in her makes all the difference." The first twist of unease came at my parents' anniversary dinner. My mother had insisted we all attend despite my crushing deadline. Across the table, I noticed Jackson and Madeline in an animated conversation, their heads close together laughing at some private joke. "What's so funny?" I asked, trying to join in. "Just business stuff," Madeline replied dismissively. "You wouldn't find it interesting." Jackson quickly changed the subject, but the moment lingered in my mind. A week later, a text notification lit up Jackson's phone while he was in the shower. Normally, I'd never look, but the preview caught my eye. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait for more. M." When Jackson emerged from the bathroom, I confronted him, my heart pounding. "It's not what you think," he explained calmly. "We were at a fashion industry event last night. Madeline met some key designers I introduced her to. She's excited about the connections." "At midnight?" I questioned. "These industry events run late, Scarlett. You know that. If you weren't so busy, you could have joined us." His tone carried a hint of accusation that made me feel guilty for even asking. I apologized for jumping to conclusions. After all, this was Jackson, the man I trusted completely, and Madeline, my sister, who'd been by my side through every crisis of our lives. My best friend Lauren wasn't convinced. Over emergency cocktails at our favorite bar, she expressed her concerns. "I saw them at 11 Madison Park last week, Scarlett. Just the two of them at a corner table. It looked intimate." "He's mentoring her," I defended. "Jackson's helping her career, that's all." "Are you trying to convince me or yourself?" Lauren asked gently. I dismissed her concerns as paranoia, but seeds of doubt had been planted. I began noticing other troubling signs. Madeline showing up unannounced at our penthouse. When she knew I'd be working late, Jackson's sudden criticism of wedding details we'd previously agreed upon, and the way he now took Madeline's side in every family discussion. "Don't you think the flower arrangements should be more modern?" Madeline suggested during a meeting with our wedding planner. "I agree," Jackson chimed in before I could respond. "Scarlett's choices are a bit conventional." The wedding planner looked uncomfortably between us as I sat in stunned silence. Later, when I expressed hurt over the incident, Jackson accused me of being overly sensitive and controlling. For the first time in our relationship, we went to bed angry, sleeping on opposite sides of our king-sized mattress. The most disturbing incident came 6 weeks before the wedding. I returned home early from a client meeting to find Madeline in our bedroom wearing my custom-designed wedding gown. "What are you doing?" I demanded. She spun around, not even having the grace to look embarrassed. "Just trying it on for fun. I wanted to see how a $50,000 dress feels." "Take it off, now." My voice shook with anger. "Relax, Scarlett. It's just a dress." She rolled her eyes but complied. Jackson thought it would be fine. He loves how I look in white. I felt physically ill at her words but told myself I was overreacting. The stress of the wedding and work was making me paranoid. I needed to trust the two people I loved most in the world. That trust was about to be shattered beyond repair. 2 weeks before our wedding, I was scheduled to fly to Los Angeles for the final presentation to our automotive client. The meeting ended a day earlier than expected, so I decided to surprise Jackson by coming home early. I picked up his favorite takeout from the exclusive Japanese restaurant that required membership and took a taxi to our Central Park West penthouse. Using my key, I quietly entered, hearing voices from our bedroom. Thinking Jackson might be on a conference call, I set the food down in the kitchen and moved silently down the hallway. The bedroom door was partially open. Through the gap I saw them, Jackson and Madeline tangled in our sheets, the Egyptian cotton sheets I'd special ordered for our honeymoon suite. They hadn't even heard me come in, too lost in each other to notice anything else. My body went cold, then hot, then numb. The room seemed to tilt as a strange buzzing filled my ears. I pushed the door fully open, the hinges creaking loudly. They sprang apart naked and startled. For one surreal moment, nobody spoke. Then Madeline pulled the sheet up to cover herself, not looking remotely ashamed, while Jackson scrambled for his discarded boxes. "Scarlett," he began, his voice oddly calm. "This isn't how we wanted you to find out." "Find out?" I repeated, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. "We've fallen in love," Madeline